Have you ever tried to access a web page only to be met with a wall of authentication? It can be incredibly frustrating, especially when you're just trying to scrape some data. If that's you, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to tackle how to open a URL with authentication using Python's urllib. I totally get it. You've been using Beautiful Soup to parse web pages, and suddenly you hit a roadblock because the page requires authentication. You're not alone in this struggle. Many developers face similar challenges when working with web scraping. Here's the specific question we're addressing today. One user asked, "How can I open a URL with authentication using urllib?" They shared their experience with a line of code that works perfectly with requests, but they're stuck trying to replicate that with urllib. Sound familiar? Let's dive into this together. So what's the issue here? When you use urllib.request.urlopen, it doesn't directly support authentication like the requests library does. This can be a bit confusing, but once we break it down, you'll see how to handle it effectively. And stick around. I have a bonus tip at the end that will make your web scraping even smoother. You won't want to miss it. To begin solving this issue, the user needs to import the necessary libraries. Specifically, they should import urllib.request and Beautiful Soup from BS4. Next, the user should create a password manager to handle the authentication. This can be done using the HTTP password mgar with default realm class from urllib. After setting up the password manager, the user needs to create an authentication handler and build an opener that will use this handler. Now the user can open the URL using the opener they just created. This will allow them to read the web page that requires authentication. Finally, the user can parse the content with Beautiful Soup. This will allow them to work with the HTML data as needed. Fun fact, did you know that web scraping can sometimes be seen as a digital form of treasure hunting? You're digging for valuable data hidden behind walls of code. Now, let's look at the answers provided by other users. An alternative solution provided by another user involves using urllib3 for authentication. They suggest creating a pool manager instance and using it to make a GET request with basic authentication headers. Now, let's see a response from a different user. An alternative approach provided by a user involves using the standard urllib library in Python. They suggest setting up an HTTP password manager to handle authentication. First, you create a password manager and add your credentials. Then, you build an opener with an authentication handler and install it. Finally, you can open the URL and read the response. Here's that bonus tip I promised. Always check the website's terms of service before scraping. Respecting these guidelines can save you from potential legal issues down the line. And there you have it. You should now be able to open URLs with authentication using urllib. Remember, web scraping can be tricky, but with the right tools and knowledge, you can conquer it. If you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button for more tips, and don't forget to check out our next video for more web scraping secrets.